always talk a little bit of kind of like community comments to give everyone 3 or 4 minutes in order to get in. The first couple we did, we just kind of sat here staring at each other, and I got some comments of this is the most boring 4 minutes of anything. So we've kind of transitioned to community comments, and we give people the ability to go ahead and send in their events. And so we'll have a couple of events we'll talk about, and kind of everything else along those lines. Did you press the go live button, Vlad?
I did. I see us connected on Restream, and it should be coming up shortly.
Awesome. I see us on LinkedIn now. It's always that you have to hold your breath a little bit to make sure that you're on. But no, everyone. Hey, everyone. As you guys come in, we're going to continue to start with community comments as we always do. So let's start how we normally start, kind of embarrassing Vlad. So Shane, I don't know if you know, Vlad has a successful YouTube channel called Solus PLC. With hi to Solus, they've got like 28,000 subscribers. And so Vlad will not ask people if they will go ahead and subscribe to his own YouTube channel, but we stream on there. And so this is my ask. If you guys are watching on Solus PLC, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. The only thing this show needs, this show needs a lot of things, but the number one thing that this show needs is a silver play button in the top left or in the top right corner of Vlad's screen that you guys see. But no, beyond that, if you guys, you're welcome, Vlad. If you guys haven't seen, the Manufacturing Hub has expanded shows. So Max Krug and I have started a show on the shoulder of giants. We're discussing in general operational excellence and focusing on achieving breakthrough results by establishing alignments throughout the organization. Episode 1 and 2 are out now. Episode 3 and 4 will be out by the time this you guys hear this on podcast form, and should be out later this evening. We're going to talk a little bit about upcoming events. So if you guys have an upcoming event, feel free to either drop me a note on LinkedIn or go ahead and shoot us an email, hello@manufacturinghub.live. So the two events we're talking about, Max, as I mentioned above, on March 30th, is going through a reformulating your mindset for breakthrough organizational improvement live show with Pavel, who's on site with me now, but is not sitting next to me. That is on LinkedIn. You guys should go ahead and listen to that. That'll be very exciting. You guys can listen to the first couple of episodes of the podcast as a precursor for that. Additionally, on the 30th, ISA, the IIoT and Smart Manufacturing divisions are having a conference. So it's a virtual conference. It's a very exciting list of people signed up to do presentations. Those should be live now. And then in addition to those being live now, it's free for anyone. So if you're part of ISA or not part of ISA, you can go ahead and sign up for the conference. It's a whole day conference. And then you guys can come here and watch Vlad and I talk more about on the Manufacturing Hub next week. That is on iiot.isa.org. You can also find all of this in the show notes, and I will drop it in the description of the live show shortly. We want to thank our sponsor, Siemens, for sponsoring the robotics theme and all of your support of this show. And if you've made it this far and haven't subscribed and liked and done all of those things, we're semi-professional podcasters. I have to remember to ask everyone at least once a month to do that. So this is my ask for you. Vlad, before we kick off, do you have any other thoughts?
No, Dave, please get us started with today's episode.
Awesome. Everyone, welcome to Manufacturing Hub with me, Dave, and this guy up here, Vlad. We have made it to episode 54. We are continuing to talk about robots, and we have Shane Dittrich of House of Design on the show today. Shane, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Shane. The first question that we always ask our guests is, obviously me and Dave have gone through your profile and understand your background, but could you give us maybe a picture of how you got started? I would say even starting with your educational background and maybe some of those early jobs, and how did you get into House of Design?
Sure. Yeah. So, look, I think my background is a little bit different. Right out of high school, I went and got my airframe and power plant mechanics license. So I wanted to go into that field, and I got done with that and decided, that wasn't for me. So leaving a wrench in an airplane and forgetting to tighten down something or whatever it might be, like that too much risk. So, which is kind of ironic because as we move forward, like my career has been nothing but risk. So, but after that, went to school, got my electrical engineering degree from Colorado School of Mines. After I graduated from there, I went to work for Boeing Rocketdyne out in Canoga Park, California, and worked on the International Space Station. Like,
Wow. So still
yeah,
stayed in
like,
I guess, the flight industry and worked for in the
yeah,
same
yeah,
space. Interesting.
yeah. And, I went into that, and nothing against that industry or that company, but I worked on this little tiny transformer for 8 months, and I felt like I did nothing for that company. Like, great, International Space Station. Wow, this is it. This is fantastic. And boy, just didn't feel like I contributed all that much to it. I did, but not as much as I wanted to. So, kind of moving on from there, I went to work in the nuclear industry, so non-destructive assay. So we assayed weapons grade plutonium and uranium waste, and we did a tomographic gamma scanner. So we actually assayed 55-gallon drums and determined the quantity of radioactive waste inside these waste drums. So,
wow, okay.
And then after that, that's when I got into automation. And boy, that's when things, really got to be fun for me. So went to work for a systems integration company here in Boise, and they decided they wanted to get into robotics. And so that was kind of my pathway into robotics, and did lots of different robotic applications. I was programming robots, so in deep into the ABB Rapid programming language, did a ton of Pickmaster stuff, did a whole bunch of just, general application stuff.
Shane, did you seek out that position? I'm curious, because you mentioned that transition, right? Going from the nuclear company into automation. Is that something that you purposefully looked for, or was it just a different job that kind of came your way? What was, and I guess, what was the transition at the time? What was your, I would say, like, initial experience or thoughts, if you could recall?
Yeah, it was one of those that I think some of us have experienced. My wife and I, we had our first child, and we were just about ready to have our second child, and we were living in Denver, in the Denver proper area, and we decided that we wanted to move and be in a smaller kind of community. So that's when we moved up to Boise. And before we moved up here, I was looking for jobs, and this one just happened to pop up. It was just by chance, to be honest with you. It wasn't a deliberate, like, this is absolutely what I want to do. I want to go program PLCs. Like, absolutely not. Like, nothing against you, Vlad, but I hate PLCs. Ladder logic is the worst language ever for me personally. So for me, but that's just how it went. We found a great job, worked for that company, which was interesting because it was a controls, mainly a controls integration company, and they moved into robotics, and it just didn't work out, meaning the company failed. And when it failed, it was bought by JLS, and from there, worked in that industry for quite a while, and after that, I feel like I skipped, around a lot, but really it felt like years and years. But what happened after JLS is I went to work for a company called Transform Solar, and it was a startup between Micron and Origin Energy in Australia. And I ran the automation development group and the reliability group for that company. And when they decided to shut down the operations here in Idaho, that's when we decided, I took the automation group and they came with me, and we started House of Design. So that's how House of Design became a company. Kind of an interesting story behind that. My dad had a company called House of Design in Colorado, and we did a bunch of street rods and customs and building cars, and that was his name. And when I got to Idaho, House of Design was available, and I got that name. And when we started our business, we went through and the bank wanted a company that had been in business for, established for a little while. So luckily House of Design was, and off we went. So
And what was the initial, I guess, I'm really curious to learn about maybe like the first 6 months to a year when you just started the company. Obviously, you said there was maybe a fallout from the previous venture that you were part of. And so you and a couple of teammates got together and started this new company. Were you entirely focused on robotics at the beginning? Did you
yeah.
have other thoughts on automation? Like, what was, I would say, like going through like your mind and maybe your conversations with these colleagues at the time?
Oh, it was 100% robotic automation. 100%. We knew what we wanted to do. We had the skill sets with the ABB Robot Studio software, which is phenomenal for simulations and stuff. So that's what we wanted to do. So when we started the business, that was our driving focus. Now, let me tell you, starting a business with, two other guys, and yeah, scary as all get out, right? Like healthcare, where are we getting our first job? Where are we setting up shop? All those questions, super scary. I'm one that I don't know, I think I mitigate risk pretty well, and it doesn't bother me too much. Other people are different ways, but that's me. But what we found, and I have to put a plug out there, okay? So the Small Business Development Center, SBDC, anybody out there that is starting a business, go seek them out. Like, that's how we started. We started in a little, I don't know what it was, a 250 square foot office. And we slowly grew in that space to where we took over the complete industrial side of that facility. But we didn't have to clean toilets. We didn't have to find, copy machines. We didn't have to go and find printers and internet connections and all this stuff. We just moved in, and they helped us business-wise. Like in the beginning, I didn't know what a P&L and balance sheet was. I had no idea. I never went and got my MBA. I had no clue. And so they helped guide us along. So I just have to put a plug out there for them. Like, that was very, very helpful for us. Very
I'm curious, I
helpful.
guess, how do they structure, or how do those programs work? It's they provide some kind of funding and then classes or a mentor, like all of the above. What does that look like?
Yeah, no, so, they don't provide any funding for the businesses at the center, but what they do is they provide a very, very, very cheap rent that includes all of the things that you need to start a business. Like I said, like internet, phones, copy machines, bathrooms, all this stuff that, think about going out to, just I don't know, just an office building and trying to get an office, right? And you got to pay a big rent for that. This was very, very cheap. And then what came with that for free was all the business coaching. So, which was very, very useful. The people that helped us, John Glarum was phenomenal for us. So yeah. Yep.
And so, fast forwarding to, I would say, today, House of Design is a much bigger company, right? So, from those humble beginnings, could you paint us I would say, a more or a bigger picture of what it is today? What do you guys do? And again, we'll get into the specifics in a moment, but just how is the company doing today?
Yeah, I know that. So the company today, I think it's over 130 employees. We're moving into over 100,000 square foot facility that it was an old Macy's building.
Yep.
And so we're moving into that. We're building another 120,000 square foot facility. So, we'll have over 200,000 square feet of space. We do plan to grow the company immensely from where it is today. So, yeah, super excited for that. So that road, boy, let me tell you, that road sure seemed to go quick right there, didn't it?
I'm sure we could have a 3-hour conversation just on that, and we could.
It was hell.
learn.
It was
Yeah.
hell. Let me tell you, it was very, very difficult, and worth it every step of the way. Our employees, phenomenal, like just great people that we had working with us. business partner, Ryan Oakleberry, fantastic. I mean, we did things very well, not always the right way all the time, but we definitely did things, we did well. So
If you could give us some takeaways, I guess, because I'm curious myself, because I think I'm at the very early stages of that journey, and if again, if you have some watch outs or maybe some learning points, is it more on the financial side, on the people side, on the technology side? Again, just curious to hear your thoughts on that transformation.
oh man, I could give you a ton. One of the biggest ones is communication. Know how to communicate, and not only communicate with customers and vendors and that sort of thing, but communicate with business partners and employees. I never believed in it, but personality assessments. Okay. So the interesting thing that we did at House of Design, and this came from the SBDC, is that we did a DISC assessment. So Ryan and I both, when we very first started, we did a DISC assessment, and at the beginning, I think Ryan would agree with me, we did not see eye to eye on the business at all. And it was once we did the DISC assessment, we actually learned, like, Ryan is a very, very high C. So very, very detail oriented, very, like, lots of, investigation, lots of looking at things, wants to know a lot of details. I'm a high D. Like, so a great example is, I would write Ryan a 2-sentence email and he would say, "What the hell is this?" And he would write me a 6-paragraph email, and I'd go, "I'm done with that after the second sentence," right? So once you like, oh, Ryan just wants more detail. Perfect. Here, Ryan, I can give you more detail. And he would be like, "I don't need to give Shane all the history of how we got from there to here, but here's where we're at, and this is what we're going to go do." So, communication, let me tell you, that is a huge thing in business. How do you communicate?
And how do you, so you do these assessments, I guess, with a lot of your employees, and I guess for those who are maybe listening and aren't familiar with that model, and I think I've heard of it mentioned as the 4 colors, right? You have like the red, green, blue, yellow
Yep,
types.
that's it.
But could you give
That's
us
it.
a bit more, I guess, of a couple of sentences of what that, I would say, like, test entails, just so that the viewers maybe know a little bit better?
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to be able to, evaluate who you are. And what we did is, it was colors, Vlad. It was red, yellow, green, and blue. And it was for D, I, S, and C. And we actually had each employee have a stack of Legos on their desk. And so if they were a low D, they had a low red. And so when you walked up to the desk, like, I could immediately look at somebody, and in a way you could say it's manipulation, but it's not. This is about how you communicate with somebody. If they were a high S and a high I, I'd be like, "Hey, how was your weekend? What'd you do?" "Oh yeah, that's fantastic." "Oh yeah, whatever, I did the same," or "This is what I did." "Hey, do you think you could go get this for me?" Right? If it was a high D, it's like, "Hey, could you go get this for me?" Like, and it's just a way that you understand that individual. Like, that's just who we are. And like, if you read through, like, as you're going through the DISC assessment, it gives you a few paragraphs, and it's like, "Yep, that's me. Yep, yep. Oh yeah, that's totally me. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Boy, that sucks. That's really me. Oh my gosh, I hate that about myself. Yep, that's me." So it's good. It's good.
And so, again, going back to the company today, are you guys, again, only focused on robotics? Are you providing different services? You're doing probably custom integrations, I would assume, too, for different clients. But could you paint us maybe a picture on the technology, service, and product side?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. So House of Design 100% was a robotic system integration company, one-offs, custom, never been done before systems for a fixed price. By the way, that's a crazy business model. Like,
Yeah.
like if I have to say it, that's a dumb business model. Like, that's really, really, really hard. So everybody out there that's doing that, hats off to you, man. I lived that world. wow, I can't believe we do that. But that's what we did, and we loved it. Lots of, engineers love that stuff. We love to change. We love to create and do different things. House of Design now has transitioned into a product-based company. So we have found some robotic systems that we did, that we found the golden egg. We found the repeat build type of system. So we have our roof truss system, our floor truss system. We have a panelized wall and floor and ceiling system. So we're kind of transitioning out of the, custom automation into a product. And it's been interesting.
So
Go
how
ahead,
did
Dave.
you guys do that? Shane? I know some people that have come to that intentionally of, hey, design build of everything custom, like the risk is so high, it's a crazy business to be in.
Absolutely.
We need to move. But I've also known some people who have like accidentally stumbled on, hey, I could do this same thing for 50 companies. So how did you guys get to the point of repeat builds?
Yeah, we 100% stumbled upon it. So meaning that we 2018, I went and quoted a couple of jobs for a large startup company. They wanted to change the world, and hats off to them. Like they tried, and I think their upper management did a great job on trying, because they went out there to try to change the world. And as startups come and go, they went. They didn't succeed. But what they did succeed in is they were able to help us create a couple of systems that we believe will change the offsite construction industry. So that was one company. And then another company, Autovol, Rick Murdoch and Curtis Fletcher, they came to us, and Caleb Roop, they came to us and wanted us to help them automate a complete modular manufacturing facility. And so we did that. They definitely, had the vision behind it, especially Rick. Did a fantastic job of guiding us. It was super painful, still is. But I can tell you, we have over 50 robots in a modular manufacturing center, pumping walls, floors, and ceilings out of the building with all automation. So super proud of that job. So anyway, so back to the main question, how did we get there? We stumbled into it. Now, are you always looking for that golden egg? I think you talk to any robotic system integration company or integration company out there, you're always looking for the golden egg. You always want to repeat build. That's where we make good margins, right? So
yep, absolutely.
All right, Dave, do you have a follow-up? I was gonna ask a question.
I have lots of questions, Vlad, but like the look on your face was, I have such a good question. So you go ahead, Vlad.
Yeah, well, I guess like I'm still curious, on the productizing side, or finding that like single build is the challenge. Obviously, like once you found the customer, you have to maintain probably some level of standardization, like quality. Like what I would say like challenges come in at that point that are different than one-off builds, because I think
my gosh. Yeah, gosh, great question. Like, think about it. So we're going to build a robotic system for, XYZ company. And XYZ company, they want all Allen Bradley, and they want all, they have their list of preferred vendors that they want us to use. Well, we would always try to stick to our preferred vendors, which would be ABB. Like, we've never integrated any other robot than ABB, but, so you kind of bounce around as a system integrator, trying to ebb and flow in between these customers on custom systems, right? And you got to be flexible on that, because some want something different than somebody else. When you go to standardization, well, boy, that's a different world, because now in one way it's a good thing, because you can kind of dictate, like, what are we going to use? Well, we are going to go and we pick B&R as our PLC platform. And it's just because ABB bought B&R, and we think that synergy is a really good synergy there. So, we standardized on B&R. Great. So now we have B&R, but now you got to standardize everything, right? And you think a repeat build is just a repeat build. It's not. It's not. I mean, you always got design iterations, and now you got, process improvements and, manufacturing. You want to decrease manufacturing costs, and you can, because you're building more than one. So yeah, so Vlad, is that kind of where you're going, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I always kind of had that idea that it would be all like in the details, but it's interesting to hear, again, because in my mind, you have to be flexible enough with your, I would say, suppliers, but also vendors, but at the same time, you have to maintain standards. So I don't know, I guess not having been maybe in that situation, it would be difficult to picture what truly goes into it. But I can only imagine how, again, there's like a fine line or like a gray area between again, what you choose to change or choose to like be very rigid on. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and look, for House of Design, not all of it, but a lot of it came back to software, and like true software. Like we had 5 to 10 software engineers on staff, true software engineers. So we were developing, software applications that fed into the automation. And that's a huge part of what enabled us to do. I mean, think of a roof truss. I think everybody has seen a roof truss. Well, I can tell you that spec homes have, roof truss packages, but roof trusses are snowflakes. Like they're all different. So somebody designs a house, like those roof trusses have never been designed before. So there's, the component industry out there that builds roof trusses. Well, we had a design software that took the design, deconstructed it, sequenced it, and then put it into a format for the automation. So anyway, that's the software engineering side of the business. But think about, like right now, a huge deal for us is supply chain. And I think everybody, as soon as I say that out there, everybody's like, oh my gosh, yeah, supply chain. Well, gosh, we're being told, 26 weeks for certain components. And oh, by the way, we don't know when we're going to get you the components. Like that's tough, right? Especially when you standardize to it.
So what does that
Especially-
mean from like a practical standpoint? Does that mean you're looking outside of ABB, BNR, or is that other components? I'm just curious again, what impact does that drive?
Yeah, our preference for sure is not to look outside and to work with our vendors to be able to, make sure that we can, do blanket POs for big purchases going up front. But obviously you got to de-risk the business too. And the team is actively looking at other options if our current vendors can't supply us, the equipment we need. So.
And Shane, oh, go ahead, Dave. Had a question?
I was going to say, kind of similar to Vlad's question, Shane, how has House of Design changed? So when you guys started, it was 3 of you. You were growing rapidly, but you were doing all these custom builds. How has the organization changed when you go from everything's one-off, everything's high risk, to we've decided to build a bunch of products, and now we need to transition into a company that builds a bunch of products in volume?
Great question. So for us, it was scalability. Okay. So we bootstrapped House of Design from the very beginning. So there was $6,000 invested into the company. And we knew that when we, and that was all the way through, like no external investment, no other investors, nothing. It was just us. And, we got to a point that we had these products and we knew we had to scale. And we had to scale fast. We didn't have the capital at the time to be able to do it. So we went out and looked for a partner out there. And in September, we closed a transaction with Thomas H. Lee. And they brought, resources and cash and everything else that we needed to scale. But that's one of the things that I think people overlook, is that when you go from project to product,
yes,
products become very intense cash outlays to be able to get manufacturing lines set up, to get inventory, to get to a stage that you're able to rinse and repeat.
And I think
Absolutely. I would say to kind of to Shane's point, I think it's almost, I don't know, maybe ironic, Shane, right? Like you guys built robotic cells that go in manufacturing companies, and now you guys have to build a manufacturing company to manufacture robotic cells. I think there's some poetic irony in there.
There is, Dave. Yeah.
And all manufacturing companies, they're very expensive and time consuming to set up. And that's why you guys need 250,000 square feet, is because you need the footprint in order to build those cells. So I think before I let Vlad get back to his questions, I think it'll be very interesting over the next 6 months to 5 years to watch as you guys grow and scale the manufacturing of those cells, and to see if you can continue that huge upward trajectory that you currently have.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I guess my comment was going to be similar to what Dave has mentioned. I was just, again, from my conversations with a couple of my own mentors and looking to transition at one point, obviously, again, understanding also that product is very important. They've pretty much told me that's a very difficult route, because I think even the business model is fairly different, right? On one side, when you're doing systems integration, you have consultants working for you, right? Versus when you're productizing, then you have, full-time on stuff like engineering teams. Again, you have to do production. So I think it's very interesting. Again, I'm pretty sure that we can spend like 3 hours going into that conversation, and I have a lot of different questions on that. But Shane, again, if you want to talk us through, so last year, right, there's been some changes in the company.
Yep.
Again, I'm curious, with obviously as much info as you can share, like what changed, and like what drove maybe that change.
Yeah, so I alluded to it before. It was the realization that we're going to a product-based company. We needed to scale super fast, and one of the only ways to do that, we thought, was bringing in a partner. And when I say bringing in a partner, we found, just going through that process, I'll just, without giving any details to it, phenomenal. Like, oh my gosh, great learning experience, just understanding how the whole transactional business group or field, I guess, is like, oh my gosh, like going and finding a company that will take you to market, that will go out there, get us, get your pitch deck ready, present it to people, and then you kind of wait and see, right? Like, oh, are we attractive? Does anybody think that we have a good business model? We think we do. And the feedback was phenomenal for us. Like it was unbelievable. And right from the get-go, Thomas H. Lee, they were with us and showed immense interest into it. So just going down that path, it was just a great learning experience to go through a transaction. Oh gosh, I could talk all kinds of things about it, but I don't want to divulge any information. But just the experience of going through it was phenomenal. The team, my gosh, our team, I got to tell you, so impressed with them. Everybody on our team that helped us through it, crazy. Yeah.
Shane, I'd want to maybe flip the table and ask, how do you assess potential investors, right? So I think I have a decent understanding of how they would assess you, how they would go through the financials and kind of understand like where you're trying to go. But how do you pick, because again, ultimately it's a two-way partnership, right? To some degree. So how do you assess, and again, taking it out of context, maybe for House of Design, but a company that's growing, that again is looking to bring in an investor that will propel I would say, the growth. How do they assess a potential investor?
Yeah, whoever brings the biggest check, right? I mean, that's what everybody wants.
I mean,
that's what everybody wants. But in all seriousness, it was very, very important to us that we found a partner that would come in and be with us to scale it. Like that is the key. We didn't do this because we wanted to sell and to go live on the beaches in Mexico. Like That wasn't the reason why. The reason why is because we knew we had an organization. We knew this organization needed to scale, and we needed to scale super fast. So we needed to find the right partner to do that. But we also wanted to find the right partner that wasn't going to, it was going to be somebody that kept our culture. So we felt like we had absolutely established a great culture at House of Design. People loved working there, and look, still do, and we wanted to maintain that. So, you always hear the scary stories of somebody selling their company and the PE firm or VC, whoever comes in and cuts everybody out and brings in their own management team and runs the company from there. That's not how this has worked. Been super impressed with our partners, and yeah, so Vlad, I think that those are the two biggest things right there.
So I guess to bring back your previous point, communication, I guess, would be key, right? Like really understanding what they're in for. Because again, as you said, and in my experience, it's been not only maybe replacing the people, but also mismanaging a company and then just probably driving it into the ground at some point because they don't fully understand, again, either the industry, the customers, and so it becomes difficult for them to just walk in and take over, so to speak. But
it does. And so that partnership we didn't need to sell because our management wasn't strong, our organization wasn't strong. We had all the right people, all the right tools. We just needed money, and we needed some resources that could actually go out and help us scale. And that's what a PE does. I mean, that's who they are. And it's been fantastic. Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Shane, if we want to transition a little bit more on the tech side, so I'm curious, and I mentioned this off stream, but we had a conversation with David Nichols, who also standardized on ABB and BNR. And I find that, I guess, like from personal experience, very peculiar because, again, in food and beverage, at least most of the robots I've seen are Kuka and Fanuc, right? And so those are the pretty much only, again, I put that in air quotes because ABB still has a few machines here and there. But could you walk us through like why ABB, why BNR? And I know you've already mentioned it a little bit, but I'm really, again, curious to that very similar structure to David.
Yeah. So I'm not getting paid by ABB. I don't get any, any pats on the back or anything, but in all seriousness, I think the color of the robot, they're Fords and Chevys. I really do. I think that, except for when it comes to software, and it's the software part of it that absolutely 100% drove it for us. Having Robot Studio as a tool, I think even if you talk to ABB, I used it in ways that other people just never caught on to use it. But every one of my quotes went out with a simulation of the application. For me, it was, and maybe it was because I was doing them, and like in a quote, I didn't need to show an end of arm tool. Like I can just go over and pick up a product and place a product, right? Like the customer, that's all the customer wants to see. And maybe going back to Ryan and I laugh about this because what Ryan would do, being a high C, he would design the end of arm tool. He would show the suction cups. He would have all the grippers, and we'd spend 3 weeks designing up all this stuff to put it into Robot Studio. When they're just going to say, yeah, thanks guys, we don't want that. And I move on to the next person. Right. So I always used it as a sales tool, always, every single quote that I had, simulation, because it de-risked the whole project overall. Because as soon as a customer saw it, they're going to go, oh, that's it. Yep, that's it. But what are you doing here? No, that's not what we do. We have to do it this way. And all of a sudden, instead of words on a piece of paper going out to them, it's a simulation that they can run over and over and over again and see what you're trying to propose to them. And they can tell you that you're doing this right or that wrong. And boy, it sure helped the communication between us and the customer. So going back, you asked why ABB, pretty much. It's all about Robot Studio, 100%.
And that software, by the way, like that tool, and David mentioned this on stream, is free. So you can download it for 30 days, I think, as a trial, which I personally haven't seen with any other vendors.
No,
So
and the things that are in it are crazy. I mean, they have a physics engine built into it to where you can pick boxes and throw them on a conveyor and they'll bounce around and you can guide them and push them. And I mean, that it's phenomenal. I guess when we in the industry see a tool out there that has made our life easier, we want to tell everybody about it. And I'm just here to tell you that I don't believe we could do what we are doing today without Robot Studio, like hands down. It's all about that.
and how
Now,
does BNR fit the picture? Sorry, did you have a different?
yeah. So BNR, yeah, they won't like to hear it, but extremely painful, extremely painful. So it was a hard transition into it. Big learning curve to come up to speed. We did use Loop for some of our stuff in the beginning and have now taken it all over ourselves. In the end, we're very, very happy with it. Just their motion control, in my opinion, is next to nobody. They have a really good motion control platform. So yeah. So
When were they acquired by ABB? Sorry to not know this history lesson. Do you know if that's a recent acquisition?
I'm guessing, but it had to be 2018, right
Okay.
around that time frame.
Yeah.
Sometime around there.
And do you see like a change, I guess, in how they integrate between the two, or was it always good? Or I'm just curious.
Oh my gosh! Like the hope was ABB. You just got like nobody else has it. A robot manufacturer and a PLC company. Like,
Yep.
Oh my gosh! Like that's money. And you have a $40 billion a year company acquiring, a PLC company. And I just got to say, it's been tremendously slower than what we hoped for.
Okay.
And they know it. They know it as well. But the fact is it's gonna come. They're gonna integrate them. So, and gosh, I hope that everything gets into Robot Studio. That would be fantastic.
I would say that the number one takeaway of ABB acquiring BNR is that more people know who BNR is. I would say 10 years ago, very few people would know who BNR is. And it would be very much like folks Loop, who were committed on this strange, weird motion centric controller because they can do anything they want with it, but it is more difficult, right? You're probably not writing your motion in ladder logic, which many other people are. I think this is a good moment to transition. I'm going to have Vlad play the sound, and we're going to go thank some people for this. Vlad?
There we go, Dave.
Awesome. So we want to thank Siemens for sponsoring the robotics theme. The technological tasks in modern machines and plants are diverse and often demanding. It's good to know that there's a smart answer to all the challenges regarding motion control, signal acquisition, output, closed loop PID control, edge computing, artificial intelligence, and machine learning with SIMATIC Technology and SIMATIC Technology-CPUs. Now, Shane, this part always gets me, but Siemens is a global leader and innovator when it comes to industrial motion control, robotic, and simulation applications. Get this. They are one of the world's biggest innovators in technology R&D, spending more than 6.11 billion, big B, US dollars per year, and have maintained that investment even throughout the pandemic. I think it's amazing. I like to joke in the robotics themes. Can you imagine how many robots we could buy for 6.1? Actually, you probably could calculate how many robots we could buy for $6.11 billion. It's a lot of robots, right?
Yeah.
So, and the integrated and scalable SIMATIC technology automation solutions save you valuable engineering time for simple tasks as well as complex issues and guarantee maximum efficiency and flexibility. This means one engineering framework with TIA Portal, one control with SIMATIC Technology-CPU, one communications for standard automation, safety and motion control with Profinet. Again, we want to thank Siemens for talking about this. And if you guys haven't checked out episode 51, we actually spent basically the entire episode talking about simulation and we've actually spent many episodes talking about simulation because this is just one of those things that we like to get into. So we spent some time at the end of the year last year talking about digital twin, and the digital twin just led us into this whole simulation. We were talking about simulating lines. So outside of just the robots, and Max was talking about how we could take an ABB robot or a KUKA or a FANUC or kind of any robot, and we could drop it in and they simulate the whole line. It's super impressive. something that I have never done, but I am happy to know that there are people like Max out there who I can call or send an email to saying, hey, Max, I've got this super complex line that I would like to simulate. Come help me out. So we absolutely agree that simulation is kind of the way forward. And I love the example that you gave, kind of that simple, hey, look, this is a robotic arm. It's the standard robotic arm. And look, it's picking up a package that kind of sort of looks like yours. And look, it's moving the package as you kind of described what it is. But with seeing is believing. And so I would say seeing is believing. And I want to touch on the communications point that you had earlier, Shane. So I think that it's amazing kind of the DISC assessment you guys did. And I kind of like the visual representation of the Legos. I think that we would almost be negligent if we didn't mention that understanding people's communication styles is important, both not only internally, but also externally, right? And I think that simulation example that you gave is great. So for most of us, seeing is believing. And there are engineers like Vlad who are going to want to read through like 150 pages of technical documentation. And there are other people that are like, show me like a GIF of a robotic arm moving the thing as I want. I'll be like, I want 3 of those. And they're going to purchase. So there are different people who communicate in different styles, and understanding how your clients and customers communicate are going to help you better facilitate that. And for me, that was one of the difficult things as I was going and communicating and talking with other customers. It's like, why does this person not understand the word? I could not in any way, shape, or form be more clear on the things that I am saying. Why can this person not understand what I'm saying? And again, I think it goes back to communication styles, which so I think that is a very good point that you brought up. Now we get to ask you, Shane, to go kind of like rub the crystal ball, and we're going to ask you to predict the future, right? So you guys at House of Design have gone through some fairly significant changes in the last, couple of years, the products, the bringing on partners. I guess, where do you think the robots or the robotic industry is going to go?
Yeah, so we're focused on construction. I believe construction is going to be a big industry that is going to need a ton of automation. Obviously, there's lots of things to still figure out in that space. But, I love the aspect of 3D printing with the robot. Like that's some pretty cool stuff. I do believe that instead of just doing off-site construction, I believe that there'll be lots of on-site type of construction activities. So, if I just talked about the construction industry, I do see lots of growth in that industry. I think ag is another one that needs to be automated, and especially with our workforce that we have today and the lack of people, to fill jobs, it's really important. So those type of things, we could get into a whole episode, but I do not believe cobots are where the future is. But that's just a naive system integrator perspective. So,
I love that. I would like to actually hold the cobots off for a moment and kind of double down on the construction and ag. So as we've had these conversations, basically it continues to go to the point of, hey, we've probably automated as well as we can, automotive, like we have automated, and like we could, in theory, like if people had the money and they wanted to pay us, we could do a lights out facility that no human ever had to look, and we could automate it because we build cars how we build cars. But I think construction, agricultural, non-standard, non-legacy solutions are some of the most interesting solutions. So before you guys went and did all these products, were you focused on non-standard solutions like construction, like ag, or is that kind of something that people found you, like visionaries found you and said, hey, Shane, I think we can use robots to go build things?
Yeah, I know. And maybe this speaks to a lot of people out there that are system integrators. Look, we would do anything and everything for anybody. Like if you wanted to do with the one caveat, we tried to stay away from palletizing and we tried to stay away from food. So palletizing,
Why?
Palletizing to me is a commodity. Like it's almost like welding. Like there's there's good players out there that have great systems that are pretty much productized. Like I just don't see that. It's very cutthroat, low margin. Food, I spent way too many years of my life in the back of food processing plants, and I never wanted to subject anybody that I knew to that pain and agony of being in the back of a food plant. So
too many potatoes, Vlad. Too many potatoes.
Yeah. In all reality, the reason why we say no to food is because we had a statement of 100% FAT in our facility.
Okay.
That's what we wanted to achieve, is 100% factory acceptance test in our facility. With food, you can't do that. I could never simulate 60,000 trays of a food product, to run an FAT. You just can't do it. You just can't do it. So then what happens is you spend months and months and months in a factory trying to figure it out, and it just is painful. It's just painful.
I would say for personal experience, it wasn't that bad, but I guess it depends what kind of food you're manufacturing and what the environment looks like.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So I like that. Okay, that's interesting. Well, let's get into the Cobot. So we've been asking many questions about Cobots, and I will give kind of the brief wrap up, right? So I know a lot. I guess Cobots kind of fall into two categories. One, we're using Cobots in place of a normal 6-axis robotic arm because I don't need the safety shielding, or I'm going to put it in a smaller space. That is kind of like the most answer that I get if people are using Cobots. And two, as David was talking about last week, he kind of said, basically, if you give a Cobot with a teach pendant to a junior engineer, they're going to go find something in that facility to go ahead and robotize, and then they're going to go sell it to their manager. And that is kind of the best use case of how can we get the first robot in. But that is a almost diametrically opposed version of the legacy systems integration of, we're going to come in, we're going to do the feed test, right? We're going to go build the cell, we're going to go safety it, we're going to make sure no one dies, and kind of all these things. So where do you see Cobots fitting into the whole situation?
Yeah, so I want to just state, this is only Shane Dittrich's opinion, okay? So, but a Cobot is not safe, okay? The application is what is safe. So giving it to a junior engineer to go find something to automate, well, if I took a Cobot and I put a razor blade on the end of it, it's no longer a safe application, okay? And so I just inherently worry that people have, and the robots are being sold as hey, it's a Cobot, it's a safe robot. No. Yeah. Go look at the ANSI standard. That's not what makes it safe. What makes it safe is the application that is put into. And are there applications out there? Hands down. Yeah, absolutely. There are applications. But in my opinion, I've never gone to a customer and they've never looked me in the eye and said, you know what? I don't care about cycle time. Have it go as slow as it can, but I just want to automate it. Every single customer from my experience is, make it go faster, make it go faster. How can I make it go faster? Well, that's inherently conflicting to a Cobot. It just is. And when you look at the cost of a Cobot as compared to an industrial 6-axis robot with a laser scanner to make it safe, like I can go 2x, 3x as fast with the same cost that I'm buying so that's where I'm at now. Being the type of guy I am, okay, I will tell you, I will be fair. Okay, I am very judgmental against it because the distribution model of a Cobot is to get rid of system integrators. Okay, and that is, whether they want to say that or not, they're going to distributors. Distributors go sell to the end user tries to self-integrate, and if and when they fail, they come back to a system integrator and ask them for the highest risk, lowest value part of our business, going and making a system work, right? That's super hard. Building a frame, gosh, I can give that to any one of my engineers. They'll go build a frame. And that's the highest margin part of the project that I have, right? It's easy and it's low risk. So I am very, very much biased one way, right? Because of my system integrator background. So I did just say a lot in that little bit. I do feel like I have seen a ton, and I'm not joking. I've been in the back of a lot of manufacturing facilities, and I see the Cobot just rolled over to the side, not working, and just people doing the tasks that they were doing. Machine tending, gosh, maybe you can get me on board with some machine tending just because it's a low cycle or duty cycle on the robot, every 3 minutes you got to go in and load a part. Okay, but I don't know, general industry, I don't see it. So
Sure. As a follow-up, I do have follow-up before I let Dave jump back in. But so in terms of the complexity of programming cobots, right? So again, I mean, I've seen how traditional robots are integrated. I've worked on many projects involving, again, 6-axis robots. But on the cobot side, I've only seen them at trade shows, again, being sold as the end-all solution. Very easy for, again, as you said, like a junior engineer to kind of just play around with and kind of create the motions that you want. But to me, robotics are extremely complex. Like, if you want to have an optimized solution that meets your needs, there's quite a bit of, again, programming and I would say fine tuning, right? Like, because it's always in the detail of what an optimized solution looks like. So could you paint us a picture again? What is the level of complexity with cobots? Are they really that kind of simple to integrate, like from a real standpoint, right? Like, obviously in a very, I would say, controlled environment, right? Like, if I put a box in a very tight space, there's zero movement of your conveyor belts, there's zero, vibration going on, your arm is always moving from A to B. Like, I understand that it's probably easy, but from a true world, like manufacturing environment, how easy is it for someone with zero robotic, again, because I think like when you say like junior engineer, usually it's not someone who's extremely focused on robotics. It's probably like a mechanical or electrical background. How easy is it for them to put that in?
okay, so let's define the two questions. How easy is a cobot to program? Easy. Easy. Dude, I could teach my son to program it. Everybody out there that has a cobot has made it super easy to program a cobot. Second question, how easy is it to integrate a cobot? Extremely difficult. So you guys understand that programming a robot to come over and pick up a part and to place a part, my gosh, guys, that's motion. Everybody's made that super easy. I turn an IO on here and off there, and it's local IO, and it's super easy to be able to do that. When I have to have that cobot interact with other IO, with other systems, with other machinery, over different communications, my gosh, Vlad, that's where things fall apart, right? And then to your point, optimization. Look, again, it comes back down to cycle time. Like, I have never, ever, not once had a customer tell me, I don't care about cycle time. I just
want to go slow.
I just haven't, And so when I'm in the code in ABB Robot Studio, look, guys, I'm trying to pull milliseconds out of each pick and place. I'm trying to pull, if I pull 5 milliseconds out of this, 1.5 second cycle over the course of a day, that's a huge amount of cycles that I get back, right?
Yeah, it could mean the difference between 2 robot arms or a single one, right? For that application.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts. I don't know if that helps, but that's kind of how I think of the world a little bit.
I still remain optimistic, but again, I have not seen a robot just being kind of dropped on the production floor and someone very well integrated on their own. So I'm optimistic, but I remain skeptical until I see it, right? So
I've seen one application that I saw a cobot used in a awesome way. 3 people, this person did something, passed it to this person did something and passed it to this person. They took the center person out and had the cobot just do that. And what it did is it paced the production line. So it actually made the production line constant, and it
Yeah.
got rid of chit chatting between the three people. Is that the best place? Well, I don't know. I leave that to you guys.
Dave, what are your thoughts?
I take kind of Shane's initial point, worry about the safety of cobots, mostly because I only get one chance, one life in this game that we're currently playing, and I worry about robotic arms flying around. I think that as we all get older in industry, we watch what we stick our heads under, to make sure it's not under, a heavy door or something that's going to move. And so I to some extent worry about all robots. I feel like cobots without some of the safety, I mean, you can stick anything you want on there. And if it's a junior engineer teaching with a teach pendant, I don't particularly know. So I am probably very, bearish. I'm certainly not bullish on the safety factor of at least myself personally. And if I'm not going to subjugate myself to it personally, I'm not sure I would put other people working on the floor doing it in the same. But I've always had this opinion of, I'm not quite sure that I feel like the safety of cobots is where they need to be, despite the fact that cobots have exploded in popularity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that they have certainly exploded in popularity. They will probably continue to explode in popularity because they're cheap. But I feel like you only have to have one or two accidents that people get seriously injured or die before we completely rethink it. And I hope no one dies. I hope we can get through the safety concerns. Well, maybe mostly Dave's safety concerns than anything else. But I think that it's interesting. I would also say to kind of to Shane's point, for as many times as I've seen good robotic applications, I've seen applications that were integrated by people who said they could do it, but had never touched a simulator or a robot before. And they're like, yeah, let's go charge $500,000 to do these 4 or 5 cells. And then I've seen companies spend $25 million trying to fix the robotic cells that we're using robots for reasons we shouldn't. There was one where they were trying to drill and cut pieces of metal at the very end of the effector without a good table underneath, and it was bending the metal. It was I know people that spent 2 years of their life at that facility trying to get the robots to run after the initial company that went to integrate it went bankrupt because it was such a poor project and no one did vendor assessments. But vendor assessments and can my systems integrator actually build a robotic cell is a topic for another time. Yeah. But no, Shane. So thank you for everything. We do have a couple of questions. The questions that we ask everyone, and I feel like you're in a unique perspective to answer some of them. So we always like to hear career advice. Do you have some advice for people looking to get into integration, or maybe looking to build products, or maybe looking to get into robotics?
I do. So I would say believe in yourself is a big one, and hire people that fill in the things you're not good at. So if you actually step back and you try to take the ego off the shoulder and like set it aside, you know what you're not good at. Mm-hmm. Okay, go hire somebody to do what you're not good at, because it will accelerate your company immensely when you actually take the ego and put it aside and try to hire people that can help you just in the things that you're not good at. So know your weaknesses, for sure.
That is important advice. It is also maybe the hardest advice anyone will ever give, because it's very difficult to look at yourself in the mirror and be able to say out loud what you're not good at, and then go try to hire people who don't look like you, but to fill those gaps.
Absolutely.
So I think that's very good advice.
Yep.
Maybe the most difficult advice we'll ever get that will be to follow, but that is very good.
Yep. Dave, I will figure out our accounting, just to be sure. So I'm self-learning a lot of the accounting practices on the side.
Hire somebody to do it, Vlad. Yep.
See, that's what I continue to tell Vlad, but Vlad has this really ugly Excel spreadsheet that he likes to keep.
We all have. And let me tell you, engineer Excel spreadsheets are not financial Excel spreadsheets.
Thank you. This has just been the best 12 seconds of my entire week. Thank you.
I'm not ready to give up yet, but I will.
I got a guy.
Consider it.
His name is Tim. I was texting with him last week. He's a great accountant. You're more than welcome to his information when you get there, Vlad. But no. So Shane, I like to joke that this is our hashtag not sponsored Audible section, where I ask you if you've got some book or other content information, and then Vlad goes spends his weekly Audible credits.
Yeah. So I read a book a while ago. It's told to me The Science of Energy. I really liked that book. It was a great book, good read. Yeah.
Do you know who's it by? Who's the author?
Boy, the author. I don't know. You're gonna have to look it up.
Sounds good.
It is by Michael Wyson. We will go ahead and post links on there.
All the links, by the way, that we've discussed will be in the show notes and the description for this video. Perfect.
Yes, especially because we as a podcast are terrible at enunciating last names. But no, that is perfect. That is perfect. Thank you very much for that, Shane. And then last question for you is who should reach out? Who do you want to talk to?
Wait, I thought there was a second book. Dave, there's a second book.
Well, it's kind of a little bit political, but not bad. But Lessons from the Edge, Marie Yovanovitch. If you want to read something about Ukraine, just an interesting book there. So Lessons from the Edge.
Perfect. Thank you, Shane.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you for that, Shane. And then the last question for you, Shane, today is who do you want to talk to? Who should reach out? Who are you looking to help? Who are you looking for help from?
Yeah. So look, we're hiring a huge amount of people. I ask if you're a headhunter. We're not interested. We got enough people to help us find people, but those of you out there that love automation, like I got to tell you, House of Design, we're in it deep in the software side, robotic system engineers, mechanical engineers, control
PLC
engineers.
Programmers. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, PLC programmers. Unfortunately, I'll bite my tongue on that one. But yes, PLC programmers. Okay. Yeah, we're just trying to grow and grow rapidly. We have figured out that remote working does happen, and the pandemic has kind of helped us figure out we can do that. So apply. House of Design. So the website is www.thehouseofdesign.com.
And if you're listening to this, we'll have again all the links on both our website, the show notes, as well as the description for the video, in case you're again driving or on a jog and maybe difficult to access. But yes, we'll have all of those posted. Shane, I'm curious, on that last comment in terms of remote work. So I really hope that the automation industry provides like more tools, I would say, for engineers. And again, I think B&R is a very different platform that allows you to program slightly differently, that uses a bit more of again, like version control, and you can remotely program fairly well. But in traditional PLC controls, I think we still have a lot of ways to go before I think it's as easy. What are your thoughts again, like on remote work? Have you been able to make it work? I think you said that you did.
Oh, I do. Look, mechanical engineering, great. We have great success and stories to tell. One of our great engineers, she lives back east, and she's been doing phenomenal with that. But unfortunately, I do have to say that like our robot system engineers, like you can't get away from actually being on the equipment, on the system, looking at how the end of arm tool interacts with the product and how it picks and places and optimizes. That's not going to go away, but you sure can do a lot of simulation work from home and then come in once or twice a week to be able to do the other stuff.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
My RSEs are probably looking at me right now going, yeah, bull crap. That's a lie. But in theory, that's what it should work. So
perfect. No, so I think that is interesting. Shane, thank you so much. I think that this has been an amazing conversation. I will say that we will have to commit either towards the end of this year or some point, maybe 10, 12 months from now. We'd love to get you back on to kind of go through this process, right? You guys are in this huge upswing. Would be very interesting to know how the huge explosive growth, the 250,000 square feet of build out and the productization of the robotic cells go. But no, thank you so much, Shane. It has been
Would
an
love to.
amazing perfect.
Yeah.
It has been an amazing conversation. And again, everyone, thank you for listening. I will, for the second time this month, ask everyone, if you've made it this far, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button or throw us a couple of likes. Please go. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Audible for the two people who listen to this that listen on Audible. That always helps. Shane, we like to joke, like lots of people joke that they don't know why it helps the algorithm. I like to say we could tell you why it helps the algorithm, but this is not that show. And we'll probably never make that show because I'm not sure any of us like math that much. But no. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shane. We will catch everyone on the live show again next Wednesday, as on every Wednesday, and we'll catch you in your ears on the podcast on Thursday mornings. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shane. Really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Thank